One of the things that sets apart Commander from other Magic the Gathering formats is that rather than having a single opponent, you have 3. Having to contend with 3 other players all trying to win alongside you adds a fresh and unique dynamic to the gameplay and opens the door for the game to expand beyond the cards into the realm of socialization, where the way you choose to interact with each other player, both in and outside of the game, can impact the game's flow and ultimate outcome. Introducing factors such as social politics can make the game far more intricate and often lead to a more in-depth and involved experience for the players involved, which has certainly contributed to the format's vast popularity. Alongside this social construct, many commanders that players can choose to bring to the table can often bring with them preconceived notions, born from the reputation many cards have accumulated over their lifetimes. These reputations can revolve around raw power, feelings of fun or the lack thereof in general gameplay experience, or cards that have become deeply associated with a particular commander to the point you often assume they're lurking around as soon as you see the commander revealed. In today's top 10, we'll be looking at commanders who can often require an element of trust from the table that these commanders aren't going to live up to these reputations, specifically in a more casual environment. Starting us off at number 10 is Ghave, Guru of Spores. Ghave costs 2, a black, a green, and a white for a 0/0 Fungus Shaman. He enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters and has 2 activated abilities, each costing 1 generic mana. The first removes a +1 counter from any of your creatures to create a 1/1 Saproling token, and the other lets you sacrifice a creature in order to put a +1 counter on any creature. Ghave is among the first legendary creatures created specifically to support the Commander format. His abilities do a surprising amount, considering the simplicity of the effects themselves. Ghave and many other legendary creatures like him, such as Marith, Will of the Wild, can be a good place for newer players to enter the format, having access to 3 colors, simple to grasp mechanics, and a high enough power ceiling that they can be upgraded easily as the player becomes more comfortable with the format. The reason Ghave makes the list has to do with how powerful his seemingly innocuous abilities can become once the applications are understood. Ghave loans himself to a number of infinite combos, but even aside from those, there are 3 things his abilities utilize that make them easy to abuse. He makes tokens, serves as a sacrifice outlet, and deals with +1 counters. Combined, whether the pilot expects to or not, these abilities can lead to some pretty shocking power plays, even at lower competitive levels. The number 9 spot goes to Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. Atraxa costs a green, white, blue, and black mana for a 4/4 Phyrexian Angel Horror. She has 4 static abilities: Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. She also has an ability that occurs each of your end steps, which lets you proliferate. Proliferate lets you choose any number of players or permanents with counters on them, and add another of those counters. The applications for Proliferate are pretty far-reaching, especially when you have access to 4 colors. Often when somebody pulls out an Atraxa deck, you may find them immediately offering an explanation of what their deck does and doesn't include, because some of those applications can be a bit unfun. While the theme of the precon she came in was themed around +1 counters, the 2 most common uses for Atraxa involve Planeswalkers and Poison counters. Planeswalkers function as a separate player while on the board, meaning they must be attacked individually and utilize loyalty counters to activate their various effects. Many Planeswalkers have what's generally referred to as an ultimate ability, which costs a significant amount of loyalty that most often needs to be built up to. Proliferating these counters can help you reach these abilities faster, and Super Friends decks that feature a ton of Planeswalkers are easily the most common way of playing Atraxa. These decks have a bad reputation all of their own, since the player often either plays an above average amount of board control to keep the Planeswalkers safe, or relies on sympathy from the table to leave the Planeswalkers alone until they're able to reach their ultimate abilities. While not as common, the other primary counter type that Atraxa prefers to make use of is poison counters. Normal games of Magic the Gathering revolve around each player having a starting life total of 20, but Commander raises that life total to 40. Poison counters serve as an alternative win condition, with creatures holding the Infect ability, dealing damage to players in the form of these counters rather than normal life loss. The catch is that if a player reaches 10 poison counters, they automatically lose the game. This rule is not adjusted in Commander, meaning that even though life totals are doubled, if a player reaches only 10 poison counters, they still lose the game immediately. Since there isn't really a way to remove poison counters, once each opponent has been given at least one, Atraxa can proliferate these counters repeatedly until the table loses. While Atraxa herself can function as an excellent +1 counter commander, her reputation will definitely draw some eyes when she's brought out to the table. Up next at number 8, we have Thrasios, Triton Hero. Thrasios costs a mere green and a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. He has a partner ability, which means you can have a second commander as long as the other card also has partner, and for 4 mana, you can scry once, then reveal the top card of your deck. If the revealed card is a land, you can put it into play tapped. If not, you draw a card. Thrasios, on the surface, is a fairly harmless looking creature with a generally overcosted draw ability. However, for anyone even vaguely familiar with the Commander format, Thrasios carries a widespread reputation as being a competitive staple in the command zone. The big reason for this is he carries the highly sought after status of being something called a mana sink. Within its vast card pool, Magic has a ton of ways to generate infinite loops by combining various card effects. In competitive Commander, finding easily accessible infinite combos is one of the primary ways that many players choose to win. While there exist several infinite loops that can win the game on their own, perhaps the most common category of infinite combos involve generating infinite mana. Since these loops create infinite resources, but don't necessarily have a means of actually winning on their own, decks that employ these strategies need a way to use their infinite resources to actually bring the game to a close. Having a commander you can access at any time, with an ability that lets you sink your infinite mana into it, is going to of course be the option of choice. With infinite mana, Thrasios allows you to draw your entire deck, while of course still maintaining your infinite mana to then cast any and all spells that you want. Plenty of cards let you win simply by having no cards in your deck, often being the easiest road to victory. While Thrasios has begun to fall slightly out of favor in lieu of newer commander options in the competitive scene, it doesn't remove the reputation he's developed as one of the easiest to use mana sinks, especially since he has partner to pair him with any other color combination you want. Thrasios is one of only 2 generic partners at the time of this video to have both green and blue in their color identity. Should a player be looking to pair another partner with Simic colors specifically, these cards are the only options available. So while a player could simply choose Thrasios for his color identity, don't be surprised if the first words out of someone's mouth when revealing Thrasios in the command zone are, "Don't worry." The number 7 spot on the list goes to Brago, King Eternal. Brago costs 2, a white, and a blue for a 2/4 spirit creature with flying. Whenever Brago deals combat damage to a player, you can exile any number of non-land permanent cards you control, then return them to play, still under your control. This process of exiling and returning cards to play is collectively referred to as blinking. It's actually a very common theme in Magic, especially as one of the hallmark mechanics of Azorius colors. Blinking can be an easy way to maximize value of cards with powerful enter-the-battlefield effects. Think cards like Solemn Simulacrum, Muldrifter, Sun Titan, and Charming Prince. Brago stands as one of the best options for blink strategies, being able to blink as many of your value permanents as you wish, for the easy price of smacking someone with a flying creature. However, he wouldn't have made this list if there wasn't a much more degenerate side to this admittedly very cool card. Brago has garnered a reputation as one of the most common stacks commanders around. His deck, when built to its fullest theoretical potential, is going to have some pretty stomach-turning cards. Among the most famous and common staples of Brago are Stasis, Winter Orb, Static Orb, Lavinia of the 10th, Agent of Treachery, Tanglewire. Let me know when you've had enough. This list includes some of the most hated cards in the Commander format, and in Brago's hands are often completely one-sided. While not able to blink his lands, there are plenty of loopholes that can do it for him, with the 4 most notable examples being Cloud of Fairies, Peregrine Drake, Great Whale, and Palancron. The end result of the unholy amalgamation is a pile of cards that tie the opposing boards into unmoving knots, while allowing the Brago player to skirt the consequences. While simply omitting the stacked pieces can result in a fairly standard, albeit powerful, blink strategy, for many players, the red flags tend to raise the second they see Brago grace the command zone. Coming in at number 6 is Zur the Enchanter. Zur costs 1, a white, blue, and black for a 1/4 human wizard with flying. When he attacks, you can search your deck for an enchantment card with mana cost 3 or less and put it into play. Very rarely do we see legendary creatures that let you pull resources directly from your deck, and for good reason. Especially in the modern day, with Commander becoming one of Magic's most popular formats, Wizards of the Coast know they need to be careful with how much power they give to legendary creatures. When commanders do have the ability to search their deck for resources, the cards are usually balanced with various restrictions, be they high mana costs or heavy limitations on what can be grabbed while searching. Zur has a lot of advantages over other tutor commanders, but let's quickly discuss the limitations that keep Zur in check. To begin with, his ability only works when attacking. This means you need a way to either give Zur haste or protect him for a turn before you can access his ability. He's also limited to only grabbing enchantment cards, with a pretty major restriction on the mana cost of the enchantments that he grabs. With that being said, Zur has a highly desirable 3-cost color identity, and happens to bring with him one of the 2 best 3-color combinations for an enchantment strategy, the other being Bant. Being able to grab any 3-cost or lower enchantment you want gives the pilot the ability to access a vast toolbox of powerful effects depending on the situation, including evasion, removal, buffs, advantage engines, stacked pieces, and many more. And the factor that puts Zur this high on the list? The table has no clue what's coming until the card is already put into play. Zur isn't adding these cards to the hand or attempting to cast the enchantments he finds, he's putting them directly into play, which means by the time you see what's being grabbed, it's already too late. A wide array of protective enchantments like Diplomatic Immunity and Protective Oromancy exist, and right alongside them are powerful offensive tools, including Phyresis, All That Glitters, and Ethereal Armor. A surprising number of enchantments in this range can handle threats in play, with removal like Grasp of Fate and Oblivion Ring, or lockdown cards like Darksteel Mutation or Imprison in the Moon. And if you want to play the longer grind game, card advantage engines such as Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Necropotence, and Phyrexian Arena have your back, with protective cards like Ghostly Prison and Propaganda keeping you safe while you move between turns. Any game involving Zur, especially outside of strictly competitive tables, is certain to have quite a bit of discussion when it comes time for his combat step, with deals being made to ensure the next enchantment to emerge from this wizard's wand isn't one that hurts the worst, but make no mistake, by a certain point in any game, Zur is likely to outgrow these negotiations, so be sure to keep an eye on him as the game progresses. Kicking off the top 5, we have Kaalia of the Vast. For 1, a white, black, and red, you get a 2/2 human cleric with flying. Whenever Kaalia attacks, you can put an angel, a demon, or a dragon from your hand into play tapped and attacking the same player. Kaalia has long been an incredibly popular commander for nearly the full lifetime of the format, being one of the cover cards for the first wave of precons ever released to directly support it. Kaalia is in many ways a hallmark of the principles this list is built on, being another politically charged commander that often brings with her negotiations as the game progresses, to try and direct her away from one person and towards another. Kaalia supports 3 of the most popular creature types in all of Magic. Creature types that are as old as the game itself, and carrying some of the biggest, most terrifying boss monsters the game as a whole has to offer. As a result, as more and more sets come out, we receive more and more frightening options for Kaalia to cheat into play, and much like Zur, you won't know what's coming until it's moments away from hitting you square in the face. It doesn't help that all 3 of these creature types are famous for having the flying ability, making whatever does come down difficult to interact with out of the gate. One of the most infamous cards Kaalia brings to the table, who you likely won't see outside of her deck specifically, is Master of Cruelties. Master of Cruelties can only attack alone. He has First Strike and Death Touch, a brutal combination on its own, and if it happens to deal damage to a player, will instantly reduce their life total to 1. Since Kaalia is cheating him into play already attacking, she bypasses his attack restriction and lets him swing alongside her, which means unblocked, he'll reduce their life total to 1, only for Kaalia to hit behind him, potentially one-shotting a player who could have had millions of life before the combo. While this is really the primary combo that Kaalia utilizes, the fact that her entire gimmick is cheating in massive beat sticks with abusive abilities means that whether Master of Cruelties is lurking in the wings or not, a swing from Kaalia is enough to make most players start to sweat. Tap out at your own risk, because when this supposed cleric comes knocking, she may simply elect to knock your entire house down if you don't answer.
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to shoot him. I just want to talk to him.
You can't shoot him!
Wait, what?
Moving on up to number 4, we have Mayael the Anima. For a red, a green, and a white, you get a 2/3 elf shaman. By paying 3, a red, green, and white, and tapping Mayael, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put a creature with power 5 or higher among them into play, then put the rest on the bottom of your deck. Mayael represents a class of commanders that I like to call, are they playing Eldrazi? Commanders in this category have abilities or effects that tend to cheat casting costs in some way, and since the Eldrazi Titans and largest Eldrazi minions are all colorless, any of these commanders can utilize them without any real drawback. Mayael is another long-standing commander who has many loyal fans, even into the modern days of the format. After all, playing big, splashy creatures is one of the things that people explicitly play Commander in order to do. There are lots of ways to go about this relatively simple game plan, but ultimately, as with many other entries on this list, there's going to be lots of fun options you can use, alongside options that are going to raise some eyebrows. I chose Mayael as the face of this category because I feel she really embodies the potential of a list like this. The creature cards she's going to find with her ability range from innocuous beat sticks to game-ending threats. And realistically, if you aren't looking for a game that involves cards like the Eldrazi, you're pretty much left to trust that the player didn't include them in their list. Mayael especially fits this theme because when checking the top 5 cards, you aren't revealing those 5 to the table. The other 4 cards remain private information, a distinction that sets her apart from the other potential candidates, who at least give you a peek at what else the player has going on. Another important distinction of Mayael's ability is, unlike cards like Animar and Joyra, who give you a chance to respond to oncoming threats on the stack, cards like Jalira or Mayael instead cheat those cards into play, just like Zur and his enchantments. This leaves the window to react quite small, especially if the Mayael player has a haste outlet, which certainly aren't uncommon in Naya colors. Arriving in the top 3 is Winota, Joiner of Forces. For 2, a red and a white, you get a 4/4 human warrior. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck and put a human creature from among them into play, tapped and attacking. If you do, that human gets indestructible for the turn. Winota makes the list for many of the same reasons as Mayael, but rather than bringing in large, menacing threats, more often than not, Winota is associated with stacks pieces. Winota and Mayael share their similarity of checking cards without showing them to the table, which keeps the element of trust, but Winota is far easier to trigger than Mayael's 6-mana tap ability. Non-human creatures are easy to come by in Boros colors, with plenty of easily accessible ways to spam a ton of bodies during very early turns, which can then be followed up by Winota to immediately gain a bunch of her effect procs on the same turn. Red and white have some of the harshest stacks creatures around, in both human and non-human form. While Winota is perfectly capable of being run without them, of course, there are plenty of human cards that can instantly sour the table as soon as they become revealed. And, much like Mayael, the cards Winota brings in are brought directly into play without any chance to respond to them. Magus of the Moon can lock down lands, Grand Abolisher makes responses practically impossible, or cards like Blade Historian can take a relatively tame board from cute to scary pretty much immediately. Better hope the pilot is in a good mood, because with Winota at the helm, the pace of the game is liable to change at their whims. Roaring into the number 2 spot is Lord Windgrace. For 2, a black, red, and green, you actually get a Planeswalker. Despite not being a creature, Lord Windgrace has an effect that grants it the ability to play the role of your commander. Lord Windgrace enters with 5 loyalty and has 3 abilities. +2, you can discard a card and draw a card. If you discard a land card, you can draw 2 cards instead. -3, you can return up to 2 land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And finally, minus 11. Destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents, then create 6 2/2 cat tokens with Forest Walk. Now on the surface, Lord Windgrace actually isn't the most threatening commander in the world. He's a decent card advantage engine, and has a good ramp effect, and an alt that's worth reaching without being completely game-ending. But for those familiar with Windgrace and the strategies that he tends to facilitate, you know exactly where this is going. Windgrace's name is synonymous with two things: board control and mass land destruction. Destroying lands en masse is easily one of the most frowned upon moves in all of Commander. It's a game plan that doesn't have much impact in the competitive scene, but in casual settings it basically brings the game to a horrendous standstill, in many cases removing everyone's ability to continue playing. Windgrace's ability happens to make him an excellent recovery tool following a well-timed Jackal Hops. His second ability obviously helps bring some of the wiped lands back to the field, but if Windgrace manages to last in play without serious board presence, not much stands in the way of him reaching his ultimate unabated. That's where the other half of his reputation comes in. As a planeswalker, Lord Windgrace is by nature vulnerable to attacks from creatures. Thankfully, he brings Jund colors to the table, which carry a ton of ways to keep pesky creatures in check. Powerful board wipe effects, including Toxic Deluge, Damnation, and Blasphemous Act, will help keep Windgrace protected while gearing up for more toxic plays. While this isn't the only way to play Windgrace, of course, and he's perfectly capable of helming a simple Jund landfall strategy, as long as Windgrace remains in play, anytime the state of the board starts to empty, it's enough to put most players on edge, knowing what could be coming at any moment. Finally, taking the #1 spot and demanding debatably more trust than any other commander in the game, is Zedruu the Greathearted. For 1, a red, a white, and a blue, you get a 2/4 Minotaur Monk. At the beginning of your upkeep, gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanents you own that your opponents control. For a red, white, and blue, target opponent gains control of target permanent that you control. Now, for those unfamiliar with Zedruu, it may come as a surprise to see a commander like this topping a list of this nature. Zedruu on first read looks like the ultimate group hug commander. Group hug is a strategy that generally revolves around providing benefits to the entire table. The strategy is extremely casual by nature, aiming to encourage gameplay by ensuring that the entire table has plentiful resources. These decks can be fun when played that way, but if that's all there was to Zedruu, obviously I wouldn't be talking about him. As it turns out, there are a disturbing number of permanents in the game with, let's say, negative effects. Zedruu may look like a goat, but a wolf lurks just below the surface. We'll begin by talking about some of the nicer things that Zedruu can do. There are plenty of cards that can be passed around the table for mutual benefits. Humble Defector is a great political tool that gives some extra cards here and there, and a handful of blue cards can shift around control of various permanent types. There are also plenty of cards that affect the field symmetrically. Think cards like Howling Mine, Rest in Peace, and Silent Arbiter. But the reason Zedruu can put tables on edge is he can also pass around cards that functionally cripple the ability of players to play the game in various ways. First, let's look at Illusions of Grandeur. When it enters, the player gains 20 life, but when it leaves play, the controller loses 20 life. Can you see the problem yet? Zedruu can gain the benefit, then push off a hefty 20 life loss onto another player. And of course, it has a cumulative upkeep, which means it won't just be sitting there harmlessly either. But it gets so much worse. Cinder Giant is a creature that pyroclasms your entire board each upkeep. Hopefully you're not relying on small creatures for your strategy, or you may be functionally out of the game until you find a way to get rid of it. Pyromancer's Swath is an enchantment with likely no benefit to you, that also discards your hand at the end of each turn. Steel Golem makes sure you can't play any additional creature spells, and Aggressive Mining makes sure that you can't play any further lands. With such a diverse arsenal of effects to pass around, Zedruu is basically the Loki of Magic the Gathering, passing around gifts and curses alike. But in the end, just remember, Zedruu is the one who comes out ahead. Zedruu, by the very nature of his effect, is bound to be an incredibly political commander, encouraging deals and trade-offs in various ways. But the reason Zedruu takes the #1 spot on the list is the knowledge that at any time, a simple slight to the Zedruu player could spell absolute disaster for you, and you usually won't know it's coming until it's too late. And that's going to do it for today's Top 10. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss my next upload. If you have commanders that tend to make you nervous the second you see them, feel free to leave those in the comments below. As always, I am an avid herpetologist. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.